Welcome to How Now, the podcast where we talk about how to live in the now. And here's your host, Kim Martin Raymond.
Peace and blessings, love and light, and welcome to this edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. I'm your host, Kim Martin Raymond, and I'm a minister, spiritual life coach, holistic nutritionist, author, and founder of Redefining You LLC, where I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And welcome to the How Now podcast. If this is your first time joining us, please go to my website, www.hownowpodcast.com. Pick your favorite podcast platform and be sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe. When you go to my website, you can also scroll down to the bottom of the page, click on the banner for this week's show, and it will take you to the How Now YouTube channel where you can like, follow, share, and subscribe. Check out my playlist, including my weekly Tuesday playlist, and all of the things that are happening in my now. Again, that's www.hownowpodcast.com. Let's get into this week's show. All right, so on today's show, we're going to be talking about inner beauty, inner peace. It's my time to shine. Now, we know that since the pandemic took place, a lot of people have been making personal and professional pivots in their lives. They've been taking some good hard looks at themselves and saying, okay, what is it that I'm doing? Where is it that I want to go? What's my destination in life? Just like we put a destination in our GPS and we know where we're going, we don't want to be in that state of constantly uh, you know, recalculating, trying to figure out, well, what's going on and what am I doing? A lot of people took time to try to say, okay, well, where is it that I want to be and what is it that I want to do? And taking a good hard look in the mirror and saying, who am I? And it's important that we get to that place because when we reach that place and we realize who we are, then that inner beauty begins to shine. We get that inner peace, and then we become the person that we were entitled to be. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, especially as we are celebrating life. We are celebrating, I just celebrated my 54th birthday, and
Right
now
on.
we have people who are out here celebrating life and the decisions that they're making. And we're going to talk about that on this very special edition of the How Now podcast. So before we dive into our conversation, as is customary with the How Now podcast, I like to have my guest introduce herself at this time.
Good morning. I am Elana Vencil. Um, I came out as a trans woman about a year and a half ago. And actually, it's interesting that you brought up um, the pandemic, or the show was about the pandemic and how people's lives have changed since the pandemic.
Mhm.
I'm a stay-at-home parent, a domestic engineer, as I like to call it. I heard it in high school. One of my friends was talking about what she wanted to be when she grew up. She's like, I want to be a domestic engineer, and everybody was like, what? She's like, housewife. Oh, it's the coolest way I've ever heard it described. So that's why I use that. It's like that. That's what I want to be called.
Yes.
But I've been a domestic engineer since 2019. And I was laid off from my job. I was working for a friend, and he tried his very best to keep me on. I got no hard feelings about him, no love lost. He's a great guy. It just happened that the way that he needed the things that he needed for his business and the things that I was able to do as an individual didn't work out. And after that, I stepped away. I was actually doing event work for a while. I worked with a group called the Chick-fil-A Herd of Cows. We took the Chick-fil-A cow
Wow.
out and did like events and stuff like that. If you were following me on Facebook at the time, you would see me posting like all the events that I was doing and everything like that. I love working with cows. But the pandemic shut us down because
Right.
it's event work. And so in event work, uh, when the pandemic hit, you're not
Yeah.
having gatherings of 1,000 plus people. You're not having
Right.
these large, big events where people are coming out. And so we couldn't have cows in suits. We couldn't go pass out merch. We couldn't do any of that. There was
Right.
nothing for us to do. So we got benched actually on March, I believe it was March 14th, we got
Mhm.
benched. And they said, okay, guys, we're gonna 6 weeks, we're gonna come back and revisit. Six
Right.
weeks came back. They
Mm,
said nope. And then they said, okay, we're gonna revisit, as time goes on. They revisited. We didn't hear anything until the end of the year. At the end of the year, when they were looking at their budget for the next year, they
right.
dissolved the program entirely. So I actually came home, like fully home,
Right.
didn't have anything to do in March of 2020, and I haven't really had a regular job since.
Wow.
Um, so uh, that actually was the beginning of my mental health journey. Um,
Mm,
in October of 2020, the weekend of Halloween, or the evening of Halloween, um, we were getting the kids ready to go out, and my wife and I had gotten costumes to dress up with the kids. And my wife was having one of her episodes where she just wasn't feeling it. And it was one of the biggest fights we ever had. Because I was like, just get your costume on and let's go be a family. Like,
right.
so, she had her feelings on the matter. I had my feelings on the matter, and it turned up into a huge thing. Well, I am an anomaly as a trans woman in that I have never had um ideation of ending my own life. That's never been
Mm-hmm.
something that really like strongly entered my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time ever that I was really like, no,
Wow.
I'm gonna take myself out because I was
Wow.
just so done, so upset. It was the middle of the pandemic. We had been sitting stuck with each other for months. We had had limited
Right.
contact with a few friends.
Right.
And it's very, a lot of people began their mental health journeys around this time because it really did.
Yes.
It pushed us all to the brink. And long story short, I ended up settling on I can't do that because what are they going to tell my children? I didn't want that to be my legacy to my children. And I didn't want to leave them. I didn't want to leave them without me to grow up without me. That was when I decided to go ahead and see a mental health professional. I was very blessed. I was able to find a program here in Gwinnett County that was offering income-based services at the time because I didn't
Okay.
have a job and
Right.
my wife was not, she was working in a daycare at the time. So money was really tight for us. We didn't have insurance. We definitely didn't have
Right.
money for mental health services.
Right.
So we were able to get in there for free. She had been going there to them for a couple of years at that point. But I got in with them for free as well. And I was able to start looking at, it started with anger management. Um, we started talking about ways to control my temper, check my feelings, emotionally regulate, all that stuff like that. And that led down the rabbit hole of why I could be having emotional regulation issues.
Yeah.
And that led to me reading and learning about ADHD. And so I ended up being diagnosed with ADHD um, that year. Like a lot of people were diagnosed that year or
Oh yeah.
in that time frame. Um, I had slipped through the cracks growing up, mostly because they weren't diagnosing anyone with ADHD really, but they especially weren't
Right.
diagnosing Black kids with ADHD back in the 90s unless you were a behavior issue. Well, I
Right.
didn't have behavior issues. I was I would act right, I just wouldn't do my work. Um, Come to find out all these years later, the reason that I wasn't doing my work, the reason that I couldn't do my work is because my brain was literally just tossing it out. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't, I had enough priority. So anyway, the more I learned about ADHD, the more I it led to a lot of introspection and self-work and just kind of processing my feelings and everything. And my life, the reasons that I was doing the things that I was doing, the reasons that I was having the problems that I was having. And I hadn't realized how much ADHD had really affected my life until then. And as things started, um, I don't want to say spiraling, but like as they started like continue like to go around, um, I eventually got to a place where I started to dig up like memories of
Mm,
things that had been repressed. And there were feelings that I had that like I would have the feelings, but because they had been deprogrammed, I like shoved them aside. Like I immediately was like, nope, can't have that. That can't be true because yada yada. That's not
right,
allowed because blah blah blah. And
right.
so after a few instances of this, um, I finally had a sort of an awakening moment, and that was when I realized that everyone doesn't feel like this. This isn't,
Right.
for lack of better terminology, this isn't normal. This is not just something that
Mm,
everyone feels, everyone thinks, everyone, you know, I'm sure to some degree, most people are intrigued or interested or would be willing to, like, not willing to, that's not the word. Like people wonder, I'm sure, to some
right,
degree, like what it would be like to be in another body. That wasn't the feeling I was having.
right.
The feeling I would have so frequently would be, I'm in the wrong body. This isn't mine. This body isn't mine. And so
Mm,
I literally built myself a series of walls and masks to protect myself from that feeling.
yeah.
And the more I dug, the more I realized, where these feelings were coming from and what these feelings were. I realized that trans women weren't just people that I identified with because they felt like because they deserved protection and equal rights and to be able to live their lives. I felt all of those things. Trans people have always been as they identify to me. I used to say, I used to be one of those people that said, if you don't respect my trans homies, I'm going to identify as a bleeping problem.
Mm,
Um, it was something
mm,
that I held true to, and I had had discussions and arguments and like not really knockdown dragouts, but like very serious, like heart to heart, like come to Jesus moments with people that were like, I'm I'm serious about this, guys. Like you don't have to agree with it, you don't have to understand it, but like when someone tells you who they are, you respect that. So I'm not gonna say I always felt that way because I was raised Pentecostal. So, I had to do my own processing on that before I could
right.
get there. But once I got there, I was like, absolutely no. Like I'm about this. Like you don't have to, and that's fine, but like you're gonna respect people. Well,
Yeah,
anyway, that was around the time I realized that was so important to me because I was hiding that part of myself.
right,
And
right.
I was running from that part of myself. And I'd been running for so long. So when I finally got there and I finally realized, no, this is who I am, that was it. There was no turning back.
Right, right.
Especially that first couple weeks, I was like, maybe I could just because I hadn't come out to anyone but my two of my best friends. Well, actually, it was like a handful of my really good friends, and then Nikki. So
Hmm.
the first 2 months I was out, I hadn't come out to my parents. I hadn't come out to
Anyway.
anyone other than like my closest people.
Right.
Um,
Well, let's
and even that
before
was
yeah. I was gonna say even
sorry.
before we dive into that, let's scroll back a little bit
Oh
because
yeah,
like
because
you
I was
said,
supposed to introduce myself and then I started talking. I'm sorry.
no, you are perfectly fine. Look, this is a platform for you to express yourself in any way you like. You have not done anyone, you have apologized for anything but being who you are and be unapologetic about that. So what I want to do was to roll back because, like I said, you mentioned that you identify as a trans woman.
Hmm.
But you also mentioned that you have a wife and you mentioned children. So
Hmm.
let's roll back to that a little bit because, like you said,
Hmm.
here it is. You are married and you have children, and so of course, when you think about decisions that are made, you always have to think about how they affect those around you. And so, here it is. You a father and husband to your wife and to your children, and as you mentioned, that had to be a part of you know of, some of those walls that you were building because you chose to be in a relationship,
Hmm.
and that relationship, and I know that you recently celebrated an anniversary of how many years? How many years have you all been
7 years.
married?
7 years married. Hmm.
7 years. So you've been together a long time. And so I'm sure that maybe some of the repression came from the fact that here it is, you were being a husband and a father,
Absolutely.
and those things took precedence, especially, considering your spiritual background, like you said, as a Pentecostal. So here it was, you were living out your life as a father, as a husband, and not and repressing a lot of that. And so,
Hmm.
I only say that because there are so many people, we become so defined by the roles that we play in our
Absolutely.
lives, in our professional and our personal lives, that sometimes it overshadows, or it takes precedence over the things that are going on inside of us. As sometimes as parents, we always put our children
Oh
first. And
yeah.
so sometimes we put ourselves on the
Absolutely.
back burner. And then,
Hmm.
just for the sake of making sure that we're there for our children, that we're present for our children. But how can we be present for our children and our spouses and those people around us if we're not honest and true with ourselves? And so, I just bring it
Hmm.
to the forefront because I want people who are listening to realize that we do get to spaces in our life where we have to say, okay, in order for me to be the best version of myself and be able to pour into anybody or to give the most of or the best of who I am, have to be able to identify and be comfortable with who I am. Otherwise,
Hmm.
you're only going to get pieces of me. I'm going to be pouring from a cup that's got a whole bunch of cracks in it. So you're going to get some of the juice that's coming out of it, but some of it's going to slip through those cracks, and you're going to miss out
Hmm.
on that. So it's a matter of being able to seal up that cup and make it whole, so that way you get everything that I have and not just portions. So I just wanted to bring that to the forefront too, because now here it is, having to make a decision like that. You realize that is bringing you inner peace, but we also have to realize that there are others who are going to be affected by that as well. And so, like I said,
Absolutely.
you were talking about, bringing up to that close circle, and then I'm also going to put that little by the way in here because I absolutely love Alana because she is part of my extended family. She
Yeah.
is the auntie of my grandbaby, and so I am
Hmm.
excited that she is, that I am a part of her extended family, a part of, not the chosen few, but as she was coming out, you know, I had instance to hear about it, and was able to have a reaction to it as well. And it was one of acceptance of it and of embracing, but we know that that's not always the way that it turns out. So talk about again, you
Absolutely.
talking about where you were mentioning it to your close friends and to your wife, and then what happened from there?
For sure. But first, I absolutely really did appreciate you and Christine were some of the people that were earliest when I first came out to like the world. You were some of the earliest to like make your acceptance and um your love, continued love,
Oh yeah.
um very clear. And that was a huge blessing because there are several members of especially my immediate and closer family that dealt with it a very different way. So it was a blessing to have everyone that I had to come with me,
Yeah.
but it was especially a blessing to know that I would still have my relationship with Christine and with my niece and with you. And so that was a tremendous blessing. But when I first came out, before I came out to anyone else, it was that first couple of weeks, it was like, can I walk it back? Because nobody knows. Can I walk it back? I mean, maybe we could just go back to the way that it was. Well, no, because once Nikki knew, she knew. So we weren't going back. And then also on top of that, there was always going to be the question of when's it going to drop again? When's that shoe going to come back around and drop again?
Right.
And what ended up happening was Nikki she did not react well at first. Um, she um, had a very strong reaction, which is understandable. Most people do, honestly, in that position. She had a very strong reaction, and but what I've learned and what I've come to respect and appreciate most about my wife is that she has this incredible gift of being able to have all those feelings come out immediately.
Right.
And then after a minute, she pauses, she processes, and sometimes she ends up walking back a little bit. But either whether she does or not, she's able to approach the situation with fresh eyes and go, okay, it's not quite as bad as what I thought it was.
Right.
And she can move past it and move into a better place and a better light. And I genuinely appreciated that about her, especially in the beginning of this whole process, because as time went on, she became more and more comfortable and more accepting of me as myself, as my whole self. Um, and she has also allowed me to become another anomaly in the trans community in that many of us, most of us, when trans folks come out, especially if they're married or in serious committed relationships, they end up losing their partner
Hmm.
and it strains their relationship with their kids and all of that. So one of the reasons I'm sure that you brought it up is because it is very uncommon that
Yeah.
someone like me has a good relationship with her wife still, good relationship with their kids,
Right.
um, and so much family and so much. I've got so much support and so many people were like, "Oh, okay," and just kept it moving. And I'm sure a lot of them had their own processing to do in various ways, but most people either just outright accepted it or they did their processing quietly, which I
Hmm.
always very much appreciated and respected. Because I don't have a problem and I'm not averse at all to like there were things that Nikki needed to express or vent to me
Absolutely.
about or discuss with me throughout the process. There were various points where we had to discuss, what this meant for our marriage and everything. And um in all of that, I completely understood that she needed her own time to process. But it also does get to be a bit overwhelming when, like you said, you're trying to find your inner peace and you're trying to get to your place of good and wellness and having to think about how it affects literally everybody else
Yeah.
and continuing to be secondary. Because let me tell you, I was secondary for 35 years. And I got to that place where I was like, I just can't anymore. I
Yeah.
can't because what's happening is I'm telling myself everything that I know not to be true because I want it to be true. I want to be like everyone's telling me that I want to be like everyone wants me to be. I want to be just content with this body that I was given.
Right.
Um, but it's just not that way. Um, and so that whole process of coming out and then helping my wife process her feelings and get through her things and then you know taking it to my kids and going, hey guys, listen, this is what's up. That was a really nerve-wracking experience because I was convinced I was going to lose everybody.
Yeah.
And I ended up losing people, but I didn't lose nearly as many people as what I thought I was going to.
Yeah.
And I was very thrilled and very happy for that. But most importantly, the three biggest surprises I have to tell you
Hmm.
were my children. My children completely floored me with how quickly they accepted and embraced it. My my littles still misspeak sometimes. They'll say he instead of she. But they almost always immediately correct themselves. I never have to correct them.
Hmm.
Either, I mean, because I know they're not, it's not intentional. So like I either just don't correct them and we just let it, be whatever, or one or the other, like they'll either catch themselves or the other one will catch them and go, she, not he, and then, and it's not a big deal. It's just a fact of life for us now. And the really cool thing about that, for me especially, um, was that I was convinced that they were going to have all these feelings and thoughts and concerns about, well, then this means that, daddy isn't gonna like that daddy's gonna leave and that, all this other stuff. And they did have those questions. But once we
Absolutely.
addressed those questions, we were like, no, we're still a family. I'm not going anywhere. Me and mommy are still gonna be together. Um, you don't have to pick between us, any of that. Um, once we got through that, they were fine. The absolute biggest surprise of the three of them, though, was my oldest. My oldest boy is Colin. He's 14. Um, I came into his life when he was 4.
Mm-hmm.
My wife had him with another relationship before me,
Mm-hmm.
and um, he when she told him, because she told him separately from me, in
Mm-hmm.
case he needed to have a
Right.
reaction, I didn't want him to feel like he had to restrain or you know keep that reaction from me or from whoever he was talking to and not be able to express his concerns and his feelings. And he did not have any. He was like, I don't care. She's not leaving, right? It was that quick, instantaneous.
Wow.
She's not
Wow.
leaving, right? I don't care if she's my stepmom or my stepdad. She's not leaving, right? He
Mm.
literally, that's exactly what he said. And
Wow.
from then on, from moment one, he was there. And he he has of his own accord um walked away from friends, stopped talking to people, eliminated people from his circle, from his and like things that he wanted to do. He's like, no, I'm not hanging out with them anymore. Why? Well, I told them that you were trans and they were nasty about it. So I don't know. It's like I don't want you to
Yeah.
I don't want you to do
Wow.
that. He's like, no,
Right.
but I want to do that because
Right.
I love you. Like you're you're one of my parents. You're one
Right.
of the people who's been there for me in all of the things in my life. And if somebody's not cool with you, no, they're not cool with me. Period. End of conversation. He's 14.
Wow. Wow. And
I
then
was
you
I've
wonder,
been very blessed with amazing kids.
yeah, I was gonna say, and you wonder how much of it is the times that we are living in now,
Mhm.
and what they're exposed to, either through, through their environment or through social media or things like that, that they've been exposed to seeing different people, and there's more of a tolerance. I wonder what it would have been like, for a person like myself who was born in the 70s, and we were not as exposed to gender identities and things of that nature. What would it have been different, you know?
Well, I can
But
tell you, I have so one of the best things to happen when I first came out, well, not when I first came out. It actually took about 6 months after I came out for me to start like really making friends with other trans people. But once I started making friends with other trans people, especially trans women, I made I reconnected with people that I knew, one
Mhm.
of whom I did not know was trans, and she's actually become one of my best friends. I didn't know she was trans until probably about a year before I came out, and I
Okay.
just happened upon something that because she had been well into her transition when I met her, so it
Okay.
never occurred to me that she was passing and everything. Um, Beautiful long hair. She had a great figure. Like she was gorgeous.
Nice.
And so when I met her, I didn't know anything. And I also didn't really like spend time with, like, we weren't close. We were just kind of
Right.
acquaintances through like theater and stuff like that. Well, anyway,
Right.
um, I came out on Facebook about 6 to 8 months later. She reached out to me. She was like, I'm so sorry that I didn't see this sooner. I can't believe I missed this. This is amazing. Um,
Mhm.
we should get together and do lunch. So we reconnected and everything and started. And she told me because one of the first things trans women do when we start like really talking is we share coming out stories because it's such a wide variety.
Right.
Well, her coming out story was basically the opposite of mine.
Mm.
Um, in a lot of ways, and in other ways where it wasn't the opposite, it was much more dramatic. So like for example, where my parents didn't really respond well, they weren't nasty about it. They just didn't get it. Um, she had her entire family basically excommunicate her. Um,
Mm.
she was married at the time as well. Her and her wife divorced very quickly, early in her transition, and her stepchildren stopped talking to her and had nothing to do with her. So, like where you were saying, like you wonder what it would be like. That's what it was like that is what it is like for so many of us.
Yeah.
Those of us who are coming out now tend to have better luck frequently unless we're still in very hyper religious environments. But
Mm.
yeah, a lot of us go through that, especially those of us coming out later in life when you've built this life, and
Right.
like you were saying earlier, you've built um your reputation and
Distance. Yeah.
your personality and everything around the people that you're there for. And
Yeah.
when those people don't vibe with what you're doing, yeah, that becomes an issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of us end up in that situation.
Yeah. So, we talk about the, coming out, we talk about, acceptance and things like that. Now we've got to go beyond, like you said, your front door. And now we're going out into the community, and you're embracing who you are. You've changed your attire. Okay. Especially we know when it comes to children, your children have activities. They have things that they're doing at their schools that you want to participate in. They have parent teacher conferences. Now you're going out, and you're coming out in the community. How does that look for you?
That was one of the roughest parts. Because early on, I was still willing to what we call boy mode,
Hmm.
which is, I mean, it's pretty much self-explanatory, but it's like
Yeah.
I would wear, like it wouldn't be men's clothes, but it would be my least feminizing clothes.
Right.
Like bigger jeans, like, unisex shirt
Right.
or
Right.
like baggier tops, things like that. I wasn't like out there. Like I was out and proud as a trans woman, but I was still willing to, when I needed to, dial it back and,
Right.
like not be so big
Right.
with my feminizing attempts. And so at first I was able to do a lot of things last school year. Um, like I did field trips and stuff like that. And it was something that, you know, people at their school knew because Nikki did her student teaching at the school that my kids now go to. So a lot of people
Okay.
in that school know her, know
Right.
me. Obviously, they know our kids, they know who they belong to. So when I first came out, it was a thing. Like we were met with mixed feelings from several people that she had worked with
Mhm.
during that time. There are people who are, you know, very strong supporters. The secretary at the school is like she's like love it on all my pictures. Like she's great.
Yes.
Um, a couple of their like Mason's kindergarten teacher, shout out to her. She was fantastic as well. She's been fantastic as well. Um, and a couple other people have been, not like respectful, but just very much
Right.
like, you know, I ain't feeling that. Well, once we figured out who was good and who wasn't,
Right.
then I started to kind of be a little bit more willing to step out of, that
Right.
comfort zone, that safe zone. Um,
Right.
and that made it really hard because this school year I went to very few things
Mm.
for them. And it was, I'm not gonna say I regret it because it was what I needed to do for my mental health at the time.
Yeah.
But it was hard looking at my 5-year old when she asked me, "Can you come to the book fair with me? Can you come to this party? Can you do this? Can you do this?" And I was like, "Nah, baby, not this time. I'm
Right.
not. I can't this time."
Right.
Um, and then their end of the year parties, I just kind of had to suck it up because I was like, I haven't really done a whole lot. They've been
Right.
asking, like there is a line. There's a point where you have to, because you're still a parent, you
Right.
have to do what your kids need you to do, and you got to deal with your feelings about that separately later. Like that's your problem. That's not their problem. So I didn't go on field trips this year like I did um last year, but I did go to a couple of parties. I went to award ceremonies, stuff like that. I tried to decide based on, okay, what's the likelihood that I am going to mostly encounter people who are
Right.
accepting and welcoming. And if I was going to be able to at least surround myself with people who would call me Ms. Vincil instead of Mr. Vincil,
Right.
I had to take that for what it was worth. Um, but next year, they are going to another school. They're actually going to the school my wife works at. So I'm very much looking forward to that because her colleagues are much more respectful and affirming and like people know me there, they love me there. Like I went to help her break down her classroom the last day of school because she had to move classrooms. And I got hugs from three different administrators, completely unsolicited. Like they
Yeah.
walked up to me and hugged me.
Yeah.
And so I feel a lot better about going to those things in a
Yeah.
place like that.
But it's unfortunate that, like you said, you have to make the decision as to whether doing it where anybody else can just go, and the only
Hmm.
reason why they wouldn't go is because they had to be at work, or their
Hmm.
schedules didn't align for it, and you have to sit here and decide whether. I have to decide whether I can go based on how people are going to treat me,
Hmm.
and the only thing that keeps resonating and ringing in my ear is what you said. Colin said, "Are you still going to be there? Do you still love me?"
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You
Hmm.
love me because he saw that you were still that you still had the same characteristics. You know what I'm saying? Of being a nurturer, of being a provider. So those things didn't change. And just like when you go up to your school, you're still being a parent. You're still a caregiver to your child. You're still supporting your child in the things that they're doing. And so, you know, when do we get to a space where we can say, okay, it's more important what you're doing than what you look like.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because you're still going to have those characteristics of loving and nurturing your children, no matter what you wear.
Right.
And so
Right.
it's going to be a beautiful day when we get to that point where people can get past the judgment. And we know that
Absolutely.
that's still coming down the pike. But I did a show a couple of years back called Strides in Pride, and just what strides are we making towards
Hmm.
acceptance? Because we know that it's not just gender, it's race. We've got all kinds of things that are
Hmm.
still swirling around, those onion peels that have to still be peeled back, the layers that still have to go through. That people
And
have to
even
go through.
in I grew up one of the big like I'm sorry to interrupt you. One of the big turning points in my adolescence was I had a teacher in eighth grade who or in seventh grade, I'm sorry, who took the time and made the effort to teach his students as much Black history as he could get away with without losing his job. And one of the things that he taught us first, like one of the earliest things he taught us was we have made so much progress from this. And he would show us pictures of lynchings and things like that, and slavery and, all the things that we needed to know that no one else was going to show us. He's like, we've made so much progress since this, but there's still a long way to go. And if we're not careful, they will take us back. So I see. So, but the queer community has had a big issue, or has had to be very vigilant about making sure that the young people who are coming out now and out proud and so happy and that's wonderful. But we need to make sure they know and understand that the progress that our elders made and that those who tried to make it or worked toward making the progress and ended up not making it this far, um, those people fought and died for a reason, and it's not something that's just gone away. Like it's not something that's just we're never gonna have to worry about this again. We do have to worry about it.
Right.
There are places that we are still not safe. There are places that we still have to be very vigilant and very um, diligent in making sure that we dot our I's, cross our T's, and you know get the help where we need the help, and all that. Because the truth of the matter is that if we don't if we don't take things seriously, we can very easily lose all that progress we've made. We can very easily lose all of what we've worked for and what
Yeah.
what they worked for, what they sacrificed.
Yeah. And so you said there's a lot of healing that has to happen, not just within ourselves, but within the community as well. And like you said, because things change, we all go through shifts, we all go through stages. And I think about that, you know, it's wonderful that, that, like you said, that your children and your wife and the relationships that you have with them are where they are, and there's a beauty in that. But just like in any marriage, in any relationship with our children, there are going to be seasons where things are going to come up, and we have to be able to address them just as we would in a quote unquote typical marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
That's just part of marriage. That's how it goes.
Right, right. And that's the thing, we just say, well, it's just going to be this way because of that. No, you're still going to
Mm-hmm.
have the same argument. Arguments are still going to come. Things are still going to happen, and the dynamics change. But there are different variables in all relationships. And it's just how we
Mm-hmm.
go about changing it. And like I said, I'm sure that, for Nikki, for your wife, that, you know, there are challenges that will coming down the pike, but it's the relationship that you've established and the conversations, sometimes, like you said, that are difficult that you had, that are going to help to, continue to, keep the relationship the way it is. Or if the dynamics have to change, that you still made that commitment to each other and to your family and to keeping your family together. And that's something that's beautiful, and that's something that, it, it's a matter of looking at what are the relationships, are these strong enough relationships that will weather anything? And that's true with any of us. We all have
Definitely.
relationships that are toxic and people that we've had to let go of. And it doesn't matter what it is that you wear, or what your identity is. It's that relationship. Outside of that, what is the relationship
Mm-hmm.
that I'm establishing? I'm still a good person. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
a person that loves. I'm still a person that is vital to my society.
Right.
Period.
Right.
And that's what it is. It's getting past some of those barriers, those walls, like you said, that we feel that that have been put up, or the walls that we've put up, you know, to allow other people to be comfortable,
Right.
but at my expense. So why
Yes.
why why is it at my expense that I have to make you comfortable, and you don't feel that needs to be reciprocated for me in order for me to be comfortable.
Oh, that is $1 million question.
Mhm.
And so frequently those are like those are the relationships that sometimes end up being the hardest to let go of, because those are the people who carried you when you didn't know better. And so when you do learn better, you still have love and affection and appreciation for those people in the times that you needed them. But you also have to look at, like you were saying, that the disproportionate nature of the relationship, and where it really, what you get out of it does not equate what you put into it. And that's where
Right.
you have to decide, when it's time to walk away, when it's time to step back, when it's time to redefine the relationship, what you have to do. I mean, there are so many people that I had in my life growing up that I had to realize, and it was a painful realization, and it did not come
Mhm.
quickly or easily. Um, Even after I came out, it took me about a good year to realize that there were certain people who, I had known most of my life or all my life, that were just not, they weren't going to be on board. And the reason that I had waited so long to come out, the reason that I had buried those feelings and hid those feelings and masked this part of myself for so long, is because I knew they weren't safe. I knew
Mm.
they weren't going to accept. I My biggest fears about the people that I ended up keeping and people that ended up supporting me fully were not actually about those people. My biggest fears were about the people who had been my support system before that.
Right.
That was why everything, there are kids now coming out at 18, 19, 20 years old, some younger. And I'm very happy for them to not have to go through a lot of things that I went through, that made me high for so long. There are also people coming out at 40, 50, 60, because they had to, it just wasn't safe. And what most of us do, the vast majority of us, we don't come out in our adolescence like we would like to. Most of us come out, well into our adulthood because you realize that it's not safe at that time and you fight it for as long as you possibly can. And when you can't anymore, let me tell you that the second that you realize that you're done fighting, that you want to just be who you are and be able to embrace yourself as who you are, that's the moment when you realize, nah, I'm done. I'm not. You can't go back after that
Right. Right.
because it's like I was trying to find an analogy. I can't think of anything right now, but like it's like something that you can never forget it. You can't forget it and you can't go back to hiding it.
Right. And what did that feel like? I mean, there must be a freedom, a joy when you
Absolutely.
just finally release it. Because it's almost like you said, it's like your deepest, darkest secret, and now you can tell somebody, and it's like I don't have to hang on to that. I don't have to carry the weight of it and the responsibility of holding it for someone else's sake.
Hmm.
And now I'm doing it. It had to be the biggest release of or leap of faith of saying that I'm doing something that finally gives me joy. And that's something that even I mean in my own personal life, I have had things that I've taken leaps of faith and was like, wow, I didn't, I feel so, really it's a weight that has been lifted off of me. I feel unspeakable joy and that I'm able to do something
Hmm.
that I've repressed for so long.
I imagine this podcast is one of these things for you, like where you're just able to
Yeah,
express yourself creatively and get together and have conversations with people and talk about their lives and
right.
and coordinate people just being able to share stories that people wouldn't hear otherwise. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here. Actually, I don't know why I didn't say that sooner. Very grateful for the opportunity to be
And
here.
I'm so
Um,
glad you took time to be here and to share, and like I said, that's the beauty of this platform, being able to give people an opportunity to talk about how they cope. And my acronym for cope is create our peaceful existence. How are we able to create our peaceful existence if we can't do anything else but be the best versions of ourselves? And here it is, you have
absolutely.
the opportunity to express best version of yourself.
And so to answer your question, um, it was exactly that. It was very liberating and very enlightening because with the first 6 months or so that I was out, um, I had trouble going out in public. That's where the the so I've worn head wraps not exclusively but quite frequently in the last 2 years going on. Because when I first came out, I realized one of the things I was most self-conscious about was my hair. And people who knew me before, it was a well-known thing that I didn't take care of my hair. What people didn't know is that one of the reasons I didn't take care of my hair or really anything else, because I also used to have really bad skin.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't take care of my hair, I didn't take care of my skin, I didn't take care of any of it because number one, this wasn't my body. So my entire purpose from start to finish every day was to just get it through the day, just survive. I got really good at surviving and not much else. Um, but in doing that, I never I never really took care of my body. I never took care of my hair. I avoided mirrors like they carried the plague. I did not I didn't like to be I didn't like to see myself. I didn't like to look at myself.
Mhm.
So I didn't moisturize at all. My hygiene was not great. And my hair would just be all sorts of messy and discombobulated and crazy. Um, and so I've had to learn how to take care of my hair, which is something that I never did before.
Yeah.
I would cut it when I could remember to do that.
Right.
Um, but other than that, I've worn head wraps And that was one of the things that kind of helped me make it easier for me to go in public. Um, at first when I started wearing more feminizing clothes, but I was still very uncomfortable and self-conscious about it at first. And so it was a bit of a struggle being in public, but privately, like inside, it did feel extremely liberating.
Mm,
It felt like I was just it was a weird sort of duality because on the one hand, I was so happy to be done lying to myself.
right.
On the other hand, it was really hard to be in public because I became so much more aware of the face everyone else was seeing. Every time I
Mhm.
got misgendered, every time, I had to pull out my ID, every time I had to talk to someone about my legal name. Um, I haven't legally gotten it changed yet, but that's on the radar for next year because it's a
Okay.
bit of a process.
Yes.
But uh, so when I when I experienced those things, it was just that reminder, the body that I was born in, and all of the ways in which it has never felt right. But when I'm alone, or when I'm with my people, or when I am dreadfully aware that I'm not really great at doing makeup because I've only been doing it for a little over a year, and and still I haven't learned really I haven't learned nearly as much as I would like to have. But but even with my rudimentary makeup skills,
Yes.
the face that I see when I put on makeup makes
Yes.
me feel 100 times better than the face I see when I don't. And it's not that I don't think that, you know, it's not that I think my face is ugly. I'm sure I do look okay for a guy, but I'm not a guy.
Right.
I'm
Right.
in my head, I've never been.
Right.
Um, and so that was the hardest part. It's the hardest part to explain and communicate to people. And the most liberating part for myself of just being able to say that, like,
Yeah.
and be completely transparent and upfront about it. Like, no,
Yeah.
no, really though, like I'm not a man. I know I look like a man.
Right.
This body has the male things, sure, but I'm not. And so saying that to myself was extremely liberating and extremely uplifting.
Yes.
Um, but it's all of my conflict in the last year, and well, in the last year and a half, really in the last 2 years, honestly, has come from how I fear, or even in some cases know, people think about me.
Yeah.
Um, very
Yeah.
little of my personal conflict has come from my own actual needs or feelings or issues. Like it's all
Yeah.
been what people think about me, being misgendered, being dead named, being, you know, spoken to like I'm some sort of freak or some sort of abomination or some sort of like something like there's something wrong with me, because people do not do that nearly as often to me as I have heard it happening to other trans women,
Yeah.
but it happens. And let me
Yeah.
tell you, it hurts every time. It never
Yeah.
gets easier.
No, I can't imagine. And that's the thing. Like I said, the whole point is a level of awareness. The whole point is a level of empathy. The whole point, and that's with anyone. Just knowing that like you said, to be in a body that you feel is not your own, and then you got to, then I'm sure that there's that reminder when you're coming out of the shower, like you said, you've got to go and stand in front of the mirror. Now you're looking like, not so much.
Hmm.
That has to be difficult. And
Hmm.
that's something that, and I know that there are some who will go through, the reassignment surgery. I don't know how far in your journey you're going to go, but those are things that, of course, definitely have to come to your mind as you're,
Hmm.
as you're thinking about the things that are going on. And so, I just wanted to, like I said, create this platform to talk about that because there are so many trans women out there who are going on this journey. And like you said, it's different for each and every person because we are all unique and beautifully and wonderfully made. And so we know that it's going to be there are going to be different variables on everyone's story, you know. But it's your story to tell, it's your story to embrace, you know, and we're just blessed to be able to come along for the ride. So, like I said, I want to first thank you for, like I said, taking time out to come and to share space with me and to talk about your journey. And like I said, so blessed to have you as a part of my family. You know that you are loved beyond measure. You know that my grandbaby
Mhm.
loves you. And like I
She
said,
ran up
it's
to me and
just
gave me a big old hug last time she saw me. It made me so
yes.
happy.
It's a blessing. It's all about the relationships and strengthening those relationships and remembering that we're all coming together because of the love that we have for each other, because of the ties that bring us together. And we want to be able to have that be the strength. Let's talk about fighting for the relationship and not for those exterior things that people are trying to place on the what we look like on the outside, you
Right.
know. So before we roll out, of course, I want to ask you if you have any other parting words that you want to leave with the listeners, and then I've got one more question for you, but we'll do one at a time.
Sure. Okay. Well, parting thoughts. First of all, thank you so much for having me and for giving me this opportunity again. I have really enjoyed it. I've really appreciated it. And I hope that there are more such opportunities to come. Because let me
Mhm.
tell you, I love talking about myself, I'll tell you that.
Okay, well,
But I
door's
also,
always open, honey. Door is always open. Yeah, I tell
right
people, I
on.
said, we never know what's happening in 2 weeks, 2 hours, 2 months, 2 years, 2 days from now.
Hmm.
So as your story changes, you're always welcome to come back and let us know what's happening in you now. So absolutely.
Sounds good. And then, but also, as far as parting thoughts for the listeners, I just want to make it abundantly clear, as a trans woman and a member of the queer community, that we are just people trying to make peace with the lot we've been cast. Um, I tell my kids all the time, you don't get to choose how you're called, but you do get to choose if you answer. And that's all I'm doing now. I am answering the call as I hear it, and I am following the path as it's laid before me, and I'm doing my best to live and breathe as a willing and responsible child of the creator. And I don't I don't always have the right answer immediately in the moment, same way nobody else does.
That's
But
right.
I take it one day at a time. And that's all any of us are doing. We're trying to take it one day at a time and just keep moving forward and do our best to live life in a way that continues to make things better for us and the people we love.
Amen.
And
Love
as long as you afford us that courtesy, we'll do the same for you.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Love that. No greater words have been spoken. Hey, that is a beautiful sentiment, and I hope that people take it to heart. Always go back and rewind and listen to it again, okay? Because
Mm.
it's facts. It's real talk. It's real talk. So again, I appreciate that. Okay, one other question I always ask my guests before I part with them is, how are you living in this now? What are you doing to navigate in this space that we're in? People are always doing new things, whether it be meditating or yoga or anything like that.
Mm.
What are you doing in your now to navigate in this space?
So I actually well, I look like this for two reasons. Number one, I knew I was gonna have to sit in my car to hide from my children. But also, I knew that, or I'm actually getting ready to go on a family vacation this week. So I've got, it's laundry day and packing day and all other stuff. I was like, I'm gonna put something on to have this, and I would love to, but then I realized that no, because what's gonna happen is immediately I'm gonna have a whole other set of issues that I don't want to have to deal with today. So
Right.
anyway, um, so there's that, and there's, my kids are home for summer, and My wife is a
Mhm.
teacher, so she's home for summer as well. So that means a
Mhm.
lot more family time, and that's really exciting.
Awesome.
Um, Mostly though, just kind of vibing, chilling. The life of a domestic engineer is always interesting, and
Right.
the work is never done. So,
Never. Never.
but other than that, we're just kind of trying to get through the summer. We're gonna get to next year
Awesome.
and see where the road takes us.
That's it. That's it. Well, honey, like I said, it's been such a pleasure having you. And again,
It's been
like
a
I said,
pleasure
now
being here.
you are now officially part of the How Now family. And like again, like I said, the door is
Yay!
always open for you to come back and to share what's going on in your now, what's going on in your journey, because it changes moment by moment. But we're happy to be here now. And again, I'm happy to have shared space with you. And also, if people are interested in following you, is that something that's a possibility if they would like to, or at the moment?
I don't really do a whole lot on social media right now. I'm on Facebook, and I will post my musings as you've seen, I'm sure. I will post. I've been trying to post more pictures. That's one of the things that I felt called to do this year to help me with my journey in beauty and confidence. Um, but
Yeah. But
I
at this
have
point,
all the social media. I don't really use any
yeah.
of it. So
Yeah. Well, no, that's fine. All they can do is that they can continue to watch this show. They can leave their comments and continue to like, follow, and share. So that way they can always come back and hear what was going on. And again, like I said, you'll have instances to come back, and so they have to just tune in and see you come back and talk with us again. So thanks again
sounds
for
good.
being here with us, darling. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you so
Enjoy
much.
your summer with the kids. Give them all my love. And that will do it for this edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. And until I see you all the next time, I say peace.
Peace.